Hello there everyone, it's Nina Marie. Thanks for joining me today for another video. Today's video is all about the Simon Says Stamp and Gina K Designs STAMPtember 2025 collaboration set called Shimmering Christmas. I love the detail in this set. The images feature some beautiful sparkly trees and ornaments, some large snowflakes, and some beautiful greetings with a beautiful decorative Christmas font. So I'm going to be using the stamps and dies today to create my card, but I do want to point out that there is some purchase options available for you using the stamp and die bundle with a complementing Poly-Glaze foil sheet set. So the foil sheets have the same designs as the stamp set, but then of course you have the option of foiling, which is so much fun. I didn't receive those, so I'm not going to be using them in my video, but that is an option for purchase. Okay, so here's a look at the stamps and dies real quick before we get started on the project. I love how large the images are in this stamp set. And then of course there are dies for everything. I'm going to stamp this large Christmas tree onto some white cardstock with embossing ink so that I can do some emboss resist. I thought this would be a fun way to add a bunch of color to my stamped image and also call out all the beautiful details that the tree features. So I'm using Simon Says Stamp embossing ink today. I did prep the surface with a powder tool prior to stamping. Then I'll go ahead and gently stamp that down onto my white cardstock. Then I'll bring in some clear embossing powder that actually has some glitter in it. This is from Brutus Monroe, but honestly you can use any embossing powder you'd like. Emboss resist is so much fun because the image will resist any ink that you put on top of the paper. So we're going to maintain the detail of our stamping, but still have color in between. So it is kind of hard to see, but I'm heat setting that image and it is on the white cardstock here. It's just a little difficult to see since it's clear on top of white. But I'm going to take the coordinating die and carefully line this up over top of my image and then run this through my die cut machine so I can cut it out. That'll leave me with this beautiful shaped tree that is spectacular. And here's where the magic happens. So I've pulled out 3 different shades of Simon Says Stamp Pawsitively saturated inks. We have Mist, Jade, and Spring. And this is just a fun mix of blues and greens that I thought would go really well to color in the tree. So I'm going to start first with Jade and just color a couple of sections of the tree. And this is where you start to see that embossed resist come out. As we apply the ink over top of our image, it's revealing the design in between, and that's resisting the ink that we're putting on top. So we're going to maintain that beautiful white area. I'm mixing in the mist and also spring at this point, and just carefully adding a little bit here and there and taking my other blending brushes to help soften things. If I need to, I can come back in with a smaller blending brush and more strategically place some ink. And then I'll take a dry cloth and buff off all the ink that's sitting on top of our embossed image. And then just like that, that finishes the embossed resist coloring, which is so easy, but it adds such gorgeous detail to our project. So now we have that beautiful color in between the tree. I'm going to take the coordinating dies now from the Shimmering Christmas stamp set, and I'm only going to cut out these 2 stars. I'm not going to stamp the stars, but rather I'm going to use the die shape to help form the top of my tree. There is already a star at the top of the tree, but I wanted mine to be bigger. So I'm going to actually layer these 2 stars, one on the front and then another one on the back, to create a 3D starburst. And it's going to look beautiful on top of this colored tree. I did cut it from some white glitter cardstock from Simon Says Stamp. It's one of my absolute favorite glitter cardstocks, and it's the perfect little sparkle at the top of the tree. So there we go. We have our embellishment ready to roll. Now we need to turn this into a card. So I'm pulling in the A2 Arches die set from Simon Says Stamp, and we're going to cut this from some white cardstock so we can do just a small amount of ink blending around the very edges. I want the illusion of color here, but I don't want the entire background covered in ink. So I want a very soft blend. I'm bringing in Seafoam, which is another beautiful teal color from Simon Says Stamp. And I'm using that to add the ink around the very edges of my arch. And I'm only bringing this about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch into the paper and leaving the rest of the paper white. Because I want to have the tree look like it's shining and glowing, that white is going to help me emulate that. So the teal color is just going to add a bit of color around the edges. I did use that same sea foam and a couple of the star stamps from the stamp set to stamp around my tree. And it really brings out that glimmering effect that we're trying to achieve here. I love the tone-on-tone stamping too because it's subtle. It doesn't distract from the beautiful main image of our card, but yet it's adding some detail in the background that is helping you visualize this tree in a beautiful, sparkly finish. To further enhance that sparkle, I'm going to use some silver paint, and I'm just going to splatter this across the card just to add additional sparkle and shine. We'll be adding some more silver details here towards the end of the video to really tie everything together. I'm popping up my tree on top of that arched dome just to give it some dimension using some foam tape. If you want to skip the dimension, just eliminate the foam tape and go ahead and glue everything down with some liquid adhesive. I love this embossing folder. This is Cheery Snowflakes. It has a really nice amount of detail to the snowflakes, and I thought that would be a really nice detail to include on the card base. So this card base I made from some Audrey Blue cardstock, and I'm laying the front of the card into the embossing folder so that way I can emboss these snowflakes onto it and get that texture and detail. But again, it's very subtle, so it's not going to distract from the beautiful image on the front of our card. My arched panel is also going to get popped up with foam tape. I love dimensions, so I'm always adding foam tape to everything. But again, if you don't want the dimension, just skip the foam tape. To further frame up this panel and really draw your eye in, this is where I decided to use an arched frame from Simon Says Stamp's nesting die sets and glue this around my arched panel. This way it gives me a beautiful detailing around the edges of my panel that really draws your eye to the center. It's a nice framing piece. This is where the magic starts to really come together. We're adding embellishments. So I've brought in my Simon Says Stamp Pawsitively Perfect Craft Glue, and I'm gluing some of these dazzling gems, this is the teal color, onto certain portions of the tree, just to create a little bit more dimension and also an ornament effect. And I thought it would be a nice way to really add some bling. I also wanted to further enhance those little sparkles in the background, so I brought in some snowflake glitter that I had from Studio Katia. However, other brands also have this, like Trinity Stamps, I believe, is another one. It's basically like a little snowflake, and it shimmers in the background really nicely. It's very subtle detail, but it is a nice finishing touch. I'm going to stamp now onto some metallic cardstock. This is Simon Says Stamp Matte Silver, and this is the same cardstock that I used to create the frame around my arched panel. I'm going to stamp with embossing ink on top of that cardstock, then sprinkle it with white embossing powder, and then heat set that. I love the look of embossing on top of metallic cardstock. It just looks beautiful. And this is going to tie in the silver details that we added to the background really well. So this sentiment will fit perfectly along the bottom left of my tree here, which I popped up with foam tape. My last embellishment was a clear gem at the top of the tree to finish off the star. Look at all the shimmering sparkle across this entire card, which I guess makes sense considering the fact that the stamp set is called Shimmering Christmas. I guess that inspired me to get my sparkle on, but really I don't need much encouragement to add sparkle to something. Well, I hope, friends, that you were inspired by the project that I shared today using this Simon Says Stamp and Gina K Designs Shimmering Christmas STAMPtember exclusive, available only while supplies last, of course, because again, these are limited editions, so they are only available for a short time. But even if you don't have this particular stamp set, I have a feeling you probably have some Christmas stamp sets that could be used in a similar way to create a card just like this. So I hope even if you don't use the Shimmering Christmas set to create this card, that you might try out some of the ideas that I shared with other products you already have. Well, thank you so much for watching today's video. I can't wait to come back and share more with you all. Until I see you again, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thanks again for stopping by.